G'day, Matthew Cutler-Welsh here from Homestyle Green. I've talked a lot in the show before about the importance of insulation. Insulation is one of the fundamentals of getting a really high performing or even just a good performing home. Now we're pretty good these days at insulating the thermal envelope. That includes the floor, whether it's a suspended timber floor or a concrete floor. We know how to insulate that, so we can get some pretty good insulation down there. The roof is generally really easy. We can stick a whole bunch of fluffy stuff up in the roof that theoretically stops the heat escaping up through the ceiling, providing we've got a ceiling without too many holes in it. These days we're also getting quite good at insulating the walls of the house as well, and all new houses generally now have a good amount of insulation in the walls. It gets a little bit more tricky when we come to retrofit walls, because you have to either take off the cladding off the outside or rip out the lining and stick some insulation in there, and probably have to put some building paper and stuff in there as well. So that gets a little bit tricky. The other challenge is connecting all that up, because in theory, having insulation in the ceiling, the floor and the walls, we would have a complete thermal envelope. But the devil's in the detail. We quite often end up with a thermal bridge at these connections, because it's very hard to have a structural element which is holding up the roof and have insulation wrapped all the way around that. So we end up with some thermal weak points or thermal bridges, and they seem small, but they can all add up. It's a bit like having a blanket with holes in it. You're going to feel those areas because the heat will always escape through the area of the least resistance, and that's what those thermal bridges are. So what if we could ensure that our house has an absolute complete thermal envelope? That is, a wrap around the whole thing. It would look something like this. We would start with a shell, kind of like an exoskeleton of the house. And that is what we would essentially build the frame, or that is the frame. We would build our house within that frame, and then we could fill this whole thing up with insulation. Therefore, at all these corners, we wouldn't have any heat loss. Well, we wouldn't have as much heat loss as we would if we had a thermal bridge. We wouldn't have any thermal bridging at these critical points. Now this system, this total wrap here, is the basis of the BeattiePassive system. This is a concept that Ron Beattie came up with, and he's got some great patents around the world for this. Ron is in the UK, and I spoke to his daughter Isabel Beattie about why they came up with this system and how they're using it for both new builds and also for retrofits. I'm really excited about the system. I think it's a fantastic, got fantastic potential. Not only is it great for high performance buildings in general, but they've also taken it one step further, and it's a complete certified passive house system, which is pretty incredible. That's a very high mark to achieve. So check it out, homestylegreen.com/144. I'd love to know your thoughts on this system. Would you like to build a house using this system? Let me know. Leave a comment in the show notes, or you can contact me, Matthew, at homestylegreen.com. I am Matthew Cutler-Welsh, and this is homestylegreen.com. Now go make a better place to live.